Okay, so everyone, like happy Thursday night. So today we're talking about the art of motivation. Okay. So in today's society, I think one of the hardest things that to do is really putting our vision and dreams into action. Okay. In fact, in my practice, a lot of people come to me to understand their blockages towards taking actions towards their goals or issues like procrastination, etc. in their life. So that's why I decided to work on this topic today. Okay. Now, so people often sort of are not very clear about what self-motivation is, you know. So for me, I would define self-motivation as coming from within us, and it's actually comes from our desires to bring and to make our visions and dreams a reality. Okay, but some of us dream a lot and have amazing ideas, but it's actually not enough because in order to make it a reality, action is required. Okay. Um, Very often people come to me and they have very good dreams, they have great ideas, and they get attached to that idea. But after many years, somehow they never put their idea into action because there's always something else that they need to do. Okay? So it's very similar to I think 11 or 12 years ago when I was in Egypt. And at that point in time, I was a complete newbie when it comes to spiritual practice and work. Okay? And I would say that at that point in time when I was on the trip to Egypt, if you ask anybody who would most likely come out of trip and do this professionally, they would not have picked me because on that same trip there were many other people who had been practicing and working on their spirituality for many years, and some of them have been studying healing modalities, channeling modalities, etc. for a decade or more. And after that, I realized that the difference between me and them is that I'm somebody that is very quick to take action. When I have an idea, I would always try to execute it because I am not attached to success or failure. I see the whole process as a learning process. Okay. However, I realized that for a lot of people, motivating yourself to get certain things done, to put what you wish to see in the world out there is not that easy. So that's why I decided today I will talk about self-motivation. Okay. Now, with self-motivation, of course, you will have blockages. Okay. Everybody has. Every time we try to do something big with our life, for sure we will find that we have obstacles, we have blockages. Okay. So based on my experience, my own personal experience, as well as a decade of practice where I help people to resolve these issues of motivation and overcoming obstacles and all, I've identified a few key things which creates these blockages to motivating yourself to achieving your dreams. Okay, so bear in mind that this list that you're going to see is a more holistic list, and if you were to Google self-motivation work and everything, I don't think you'll actually find people who share the exact same list as me. Okay, because this is from my own observation, as well as actually helping people overcome issues with procrastination. Okay. So the first thing actually is a birth chart, okay, and then my cluster and overthinking, lack of clarity, and also being out of touch with reality, family and societal conditioning, procrastination, health, lack of self-confidence, and emotional fluctuations. For the rest of tonight, I'm going to touch on each of this one by one. Okay, so now let's look at the birth chart. Okay, so this is something interesting, which I observe very often, with my clients, which I don't think many people, when they talk about self-motivation, will talk to you about it. Okay, So because in my practice, I work a lot with birth charts because I feel like birth charts give us a baseline that helps to determine what is the pre-existing condition, which means what are you born with, because if I don't know your baseline, it's very hard for me to then decide what would be an effective recommendation that would not be sort of like out of sync with your energy. Okay. So the interesting thing, which some people don't know, is that there are action elements in our charts. Okay, so some people are born with more action elements, and so it influences the speed of action. Okay, so I, for one, have strong action in my chart. Something that in English, like the technical speak, when you come to the 4 pillars of destiny, they call aggressive intelligence or aggressive action. Okay, so because I have this, it's easier for me to take action or to get into action. Okay, so usually when people have a procrastination issue, or if they are unable to motivate like themselves to take action, the first thing I would do is to look at their birth chart. Okay, because if you're born with a lot of action elements and yet you have a self-motivation like issue, then I know to not bother about birth chart and look at your energy to see where the blockages are. Okay, but if you lack like action like in your chart, okay, then I will need to recommend sort of a way whereby you can incentivize yourself to take action. Okay, or to work on eradicating other factors that will actually hold you back. Okay, so that it makes it easier for you to sort of like motivate like yourself. Okay, because if you think about it, lacking action in your chart is as if when you need to take any action, your health is like, before you take off and run, you're held down by 20 kg of weight. Okay, so while we cannot completely remove like the 20 kg of weight, if I can reduce it to, let's say, 5 kg or 1 kg, it makes it easier for you to get up and go. Okay, so without looking at your birth chart, okay, one way to find out whether you have action in your chart or not is this following way. Okay, so first is, how fast do you think on your feet? Okay, or how quickly do you respond to an argument, especially if it's something that takes you like off guard. So we're not talking about arguing like with your spouse or your sister and family, because this will be existing issues that you have like been thinking about over and over again, so you already have some idea in your mind. We're talking about like, you go to like the food center and then somebody cuts your queue and then they say something to you, then what happens? Okay, so like what happens? Because is it easy for you to is it easy actually like for you to like quickly come up with an argument that is very appropriate? Okay, and then also like when problems happen, you actually think like really like quickly. Okay, so you can think about like your own like action and see whether this is something that you might have in your chart. Of course, if you have had your chart read before, then you can also like look and see whether you possess this in your birth chart or not. Okay, now the other issue that plagues a lot of people in our current society is mind clutter and overthinking. Okay, why? Is because unlike, let's say, 20-30 years ago, our current society has a lot of what I call stresses. So stress triggers like noise, like loud noise, or like issues like with like people, so there's a lot of like so there's actually quite like a lot of things that can cause us to really become like distracted, okay, or to feel a lot of like pressure, to feel like we have like a lot of stress like around like us. Okay, so when all that like happens, we end up actually having a lot of like clutter, a lot of thoughts. So for example, I've known like people who have like full monologues like in their own heads. Okay, if you're having a full monologue in your own head, there is no space for anything to happen because you're so focused now on whatever is happening in your head. Okay, so therefore mind clutter is like one of like the biggest like issues that most people sort of like face like at the moment. Okay. Now second issue which leads to sort of like mind clutter and overthinking is because our current education like system and thinking patterns, and we're not talking about just out here in Asia, we're talking about all over the world, you know, they advocate actually logic. They advocate use of your mind, use like your brain, etc. Okay, and not about balance. So only very like recently in the last like couple of years do they start teaching children to also use their intuition to understand that balancing like your feelings and your thinking is like equally like important. Okay, back in like for decades, like back in the days, like for decades and decades, we are taught that logic and rationale rules. Okay, if it's not logical, then it doesn't make sense. You know, that you should go with like the logic or go and think like rationally. Okay, so for example, even like in colloquial speak, right? A lot of times our parents or teachers or whatever say use your head or ask you to think. You know, so this actually predisposes us to think that okay, yes, you know, like we need to keep thinking. Okay? But in reality, when it comes to a balanced like system, right? Especially if you are working on your own spiritual practice, we always say that the heart is the master and the mind is supposed to be the servant. So the mind is supposed to serve the heart. So it's supposed to be heart first and then mind after. Okay, so that doesn't, so what this means is that you need to first of all acknowledge what it is that you're feeling first, and then you can use rationale and logic to support that. Okay, but you shouldn't go like absolutely just like with rationale and logic and ignore whatever it is that you're feeling, or worse, deny what you're feeling. Okay, because this kind of a consistent pattern will lead you into a habit of overthinking. Okay, so mind clutter is also caused by looped like thinking. So loop thinking is often also linked with emotions, and loop thinking often comes when people have worries that they cannot sort of like overcome. So for example, you're worried about something and you keep being worried about it, and then you get into like a loop, and instead of finding a solution for it, you are just concerned about thinking and complaining about it, thinking and complaining about it. Okay, so mind clutter causes a lot of issue that prevents you from motivating yourself to achieve like your goals. Okay, so mind clutter is one of the things that is actually pretty easy to get rid of. Okay, so how do you get rid of like mind like exercise? So I usually use one of either. So either a breath exercise or like a meditation. Okay, so let's try one right now since everybody I think should be ready. Okay, so let's work with the breath exercise. Okay, so the sort of whole like idea behind the breath exercise is that you're bringing your focus to one thing, so it prevents you from actually getting trapped in that overthinking and getting accumulating of a mind clutter. Okay, now when you first work on the breath exercise, it is perfectly normal for you to drift in and out. So for example, a lot of people experience this whereby they are focusing on their breath and then suddenly a random thought like, what should I eat for lunch tomorrow comes. Okay, so it's perfectly fine. What you want to do is focus on your breath, and then a random thought comes, just let it go, bring your focus back to the breath. So you keep doing this whereby you bring your focus back to your breath, bring your focus back to your breath. And trust me, if you consistently sort of like do this, and you can do this like lying down, sitting up, anytime, and you can do this like for like 5 minutes, 1 minute, 30 seconds, but regularly doing it can eventually help you to be able to focus your mind and actually clear like your mind. Okay, so let's try this now. So it's helpful if you close your eyes. So close your eyes and just find a comfortable position. Okay. And then now just bring your focus to where your nose is and then to your breath. And then just observe first how you're breathing. Okay, so don't try to do deep inhalation or exhalation first. Just observe how you're breathing first. Okay. Now, just ask yourself a question. Are you breathing in a relaxed manner? Are you breathing very shallowly? Or are you breathing like taking deep inhalations and exhalations? Okay. So once you have observed the pattern of how you breathe, start to slowly moderate your breath by taking a slow, deep inhalation. And now just slowly exhale and feel your whole body relaxing. Another deep inhalation. And exhale, feel your body relaxing. So continue taking deep inhalation and exhalation. If you find your attention shifting to random questions, you can try counting as you breathe in and counting as you breathe out. So for example, inhale, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and now just back to breathing relaxedly. And just set the intention that you want to do this on a daily basis and clear your mind of all mind clutter. And then whenever you're ready, you can open your eyes. Okay, so apart from this breath exercise, any form of guided meditation can work as well. So there are guided meditations on my Am the Lumiere channel on YouTube, which you can actually use. They're short meditations, and if you're rushed for time, they're under 15 minutes, so you can try them. So they can help to sort of clear energy and clear your mind clutter as well. Or if you prefer somebody else, because sometimes it's about connecting to the voice and energy, you can also like try that. Try to start with short meditations first because it's easier to hold like the focus. Okay, and we move on now. Okay, so another
like
thing
you do the work of 4 people. Monday, Doc.
So another one that so another big thing that actually prevents people from self-motivating is actually the fact that they lack clarity. Okay, so some people lack clarity about what they want, but there are also in the same category people who are out of touch like with reality. Okay, so for example, people who, especially if you are doing a lot of clearing and you're on a spiritual journey, sometimes your energy may expand so much that your grounding becomes affected. So if you're ungrounded or if you lack grounding, then you may find yourself becoming out of touch with reality and lacking clarity. So when this happens, it becomes very difficult for you to be able to visualize or focus on what is it that you want, and therefore if you don't know what you want, it becomes harder to take action. Okay. Now, the other sort of factor is avoidance energy. Okay, so sometimes people lack clarity because they don't want to think about what is it that they want, or they are trying to avoid confronting certain issues in their life. Okay, or there are some very rare circumstances in their life which they are not prepared to sort of like resolve at the moment. So it becomes easier to sort of take an escapist attitude. So you escape from your real life. So the moment you escape from your real life, you get out of touch with reality. It also becomes difficult for you to connect with what is it that you want in the future. And therefore you won't have clarity about your goals. So once you don't have any clarity and you're out of touch with reality, there's no way that you can galvanize action to do like what needs to be done. Okay. So this can also sometimes be linked to overthinking and mind clutter. So for example, some people actually like think a lot, and they're thinking about all the like pros and cons and everything, but without an objective not in an objective manner. So when that actually happens, we end up actually just focusing on the things that bother you, which most of the time are the negative aspects or the cons rather than the pros. And being unable to sort of like weigh it up, you start actually to go further and further from your goals, to go further and further away from understanding what you can achieve, and therefore harder and harder for you to pick yourself up and go, oh, I miss not doing enough research. Okay, so sometimes people have dreams. Okay, so not doing enough research is a very interesting one, which I sometimes find in a lot of my clients who say, oh, I want to do this thing, but I find it's hard to motivate myself like to do it. Okay, so that's because sometimes in order to be able to get yourself going, you need to understand exactly what you're facing. And to understand what you're facing, you need to actually do research. Okay, so for example, one of my clients came to me before and said, oh, I'm very interested in doing a food business. So he wanted to set up an F&B like a cafe. However, she has no experience setting up a cafe. She has the capital to do it. No previous experience, no partners with experience, and also no clarity about like what is it like that she wants exactly to do with the cafe. So because a cafe is a very kind of like big concept, so that's what I mean by lacking clarity. So yes, you want a cafe, but what does your cafe do? Okay, do your cafe sells like snack food? Do your cafe sells, I don't know, ice cream and waffles, or is it only focusing on coffee and beverages? So what exactly does the cafe do? So if you haven't even figured it out, then you have not done your research, and that's why it remains like a dream, because your own common sense will also tell you that you do not just like throw your money into I want to build a cafe without knowing what is it that you want to sell, where you want to locate it, who you're going to hire for it, or if you need like a partner for it. Okay, so sometimes doing enough research can actually help you to gain more clarity about what you need to do, get you back in touch with reality, and then suddenly it becomes much easier to take action to do what you need to do. Okay. Now, another thing is lack of clarity and being out of touch with reality can also be linked back to the birth chart. So in some people's like birth chart, there is a lack of grounding, which means that either they have different elements at the top and bottom, or there isn't any, or everything feels like floaty, like in the birth chart. So if that actually happens, then this person's energy may be more conducive to dreaming up like visions and thinking about things rather than taking action. Okay, so when this actually is present in your birth chart, it doesn't mean you cannot do like you will never like succeed in whatever it is that you want to do, but it just means that you may need some help doing it. So how can you do that? Maybe you need somebody, you need a community, or you need like a partner to help you like with it, or you need like people that can like motivate you and like like cheer you on, so this can then help with the so-called lack of grounding like in your birth chart. Okay, now another very common thing which can be easily resolved by clearing your negative like energies is a lot of people who are more sensitive to the environment. So especially if you have psychic abilities, or you're incredibly like intuitive, or you have a lot of like or you have the like abilities of an empath, or a lot of like sensitivity to people's emotions and all in general, you may actually end up absorbing negative energies from the environment. And by environment, I don't just mean like the external environment, I also mean like the people around you. Okay, so for some people, when they over absorb negative like energies, you end up having very cloudy sort of like energy. Okay, so when I see the person's energy field, it looks like they are in a fog, like literally it's like cloudy, but not like nice fluffy white clouds, but more like gray, smoky, sometimes even like with black specks and stuff. So when that actually like happens, it prevents you from actually being sort of like having sort of like a clear idea of what it is that you want. Oops. Yeah. So because negative, like too much negative energy in our energy field makes our energy heavy, and it makes it difficult for us to know what are actually our own thoughts or our own feelings versus what is it that we absorb from the environment. Okay, so especially empaths and people who are sensitive to other people's energies, this is a real problem. Okay, because imagine this: you have absorbed like your family's energy. Okay, and while you yourself feel that okay, you should be maybe like branching out and like getting like a new job or something. However, your family may be worried about finances and things like that. So when you absorb like their negative like energy, you will feel the fears as well. Okay, so here now you have a situation whereby you feel like you need to change your job, and that a change of job is going to be good like for you, because it's going to bring you like maybe financial advantages and also like a better work-life balance, etc. But at the same time, because you're so sensitive to energies and you've over absorbed the negative energies of your family, you now feel their fears. So you have the fear and your own sort of like inner wisdom fighting at loggerheads, fighting each other, so this can actually lead you to sort of like doubt whether what you feel is right, or are the fears and like the advocation for safety and security the way like to go. Okay, now worst case scenario, which has happened but it does not happen like very in most of the people, I would say so far out of all the clients in my 10 over years, probably only came across 4 people who were not able to self-motivate because of missing soul parts. Okay, so missing soul parts are actually it means that like you might have come into this particular life uh having left some of your soul parts in previous lifetimes, uh for whatever reason, or like or because of some trauma that you have sustained in this life or the past life, certain soul parts have like broken away and you're not able to like retrieve them. Okay, so in fact in shamanic practice, soul retrieval is like a very big part of like shamanic practice as well. Okay, so there have been some times where people are not able to motivate themselves because their soul is not whole. So when your soul is not whole, it's very difficult, one, to have clarity about what it is that you really want to do, because it's hard to connect with the holistic like you. Okay. At the same time, missing soul parts also makes your energy extremely unstable. So therefore, you actually get like sort of out of touch, like with like reality. Okay. So so these are some of the things that are happening if that might be happening if you lack clarity or you're out of touch like with reality. Okay. So okay, so we have an interesting question. How do we know if we have like missing soul parts? Okay. So most often coming into this world, you know, even if you've not sustained any like major trauma or whatever like in your life, and but yet you always feel like something is missing. Okay. So people with missing soul parts often subscribe to the need to find like so-called the other half, or they have like a almost like a obsession with like finding their twin flame or whatever. Okay, so a lot of people who, so we're talking about obsession now, we're not talking about like having a curiosity. So if you're curious, it's like, oh, do I really have a twin flame, you know, like who's my twin flame if I have one, you know, how do I know? Okay, that's just curiosity. Okay, but I met some people who are very obsessed with finding like the twin flame. Okay. So if you have unhealthy beliefs and like almost like a desperate need to find a twin flame, you most likely have a missing soul part. Okay, so that's one indication. Second indication is people with missing soul parts often dream of like either the situation or the actual place where they have left that missing soul part. Okay, so the reason why is because our soul tries to recall it on its own, but usually there's blockages that prevent you from doing it. So when you're trying to recall your soul, you connect with it, and therefore you're able to feel what is happening like to it. Okay, so if you find that you consistently have certain dreams, and the dreams always like revolve around the same thing and the same situation, and it's extremely like real in a dream, then you may actually have a missing sort of soul part. Okay, of course, the third and most like simple sort of like way to tell how like you have a missing soul part is you go to a healer, you ask them to check it for you. Okay, so that's the like the convenient, easy way. Okay, so hopefully that answered your question. Okay. Now, next, we talk about family and societal like condition. Okay, so although action is valued, okay, everybody says, you know, you should take action to sort of like, you know, achieve your goals. You should be, you know, like motivating yourself. Everybody talks about self-motivation. Okay, but what people don't realize is that our family upbringing and the societal conditioning may sometimes work against you. Okay, so why? Because for example, I think especially in Asian like culture, right, we actually brought up to sort of like doubt of first instinct of like action. Okay, so for example, some like my character, I tend to act very quickly, but very often when I act, okay, after that I get a lot of negative feedback about it. Okay, people will kind of tell you, you should have done this, you should have done that, and etc etc. So this kind of like a reaction makes it make the person who has taken the action start to think and start to doubt whether did I really take the right course of action, is should I be thinking more before I act. Okay, but bear in mind that the moment you start thinking, most of the time you don't act at all. Okay, and then also in our society there are very strong concepts of being weaker or like lower in the hierarchy. Okay, so give you a very good like example. So for example, when I was like, I think in secondary school, I mean I must have been like 14 or 15 like years old. Okay, I was in a shopping mall one day, and then there was like a pickpocket. Okay, so so the pickpocket was the person who the victim actually discovered it, and so shouted like, oh, pickpocket, catch the thief, or something like that. Okay, so my first instinct is to run after like that person. Okay, run after that person. Okay, but luckily, like for me, there was another like man much bigger than me who also ran after the pickpocket and like managed to subdue like them. Okay, and my friends who were, I was with a bunch of friends, and my friends like said to me like, what are you doing? Why do you do that? It's so dangerous. So this concept of like dangerous, because number one, I'm female. Number two, I'm 15 years old, and I'm a parent, and actually, I think I'm smaller size than the pickpocket. Okay, just slightly. Okay, it was like, and to them, they felt that because I'm female, because I'm 15 years old, and I'm actually smaller size than the pickpocket, that I should not have put myself in danger. Okay, because I am weaker and I might get hurt in the process. And here comes like the crunch. It's not even my thing that's being stolen. Okay, so you can see like this. I mean, obviously, my friends are also the same age as me at 15 years old. So how do they know all these things? Obviously, this is taught to them by society, right? Yeah, and then also along the way as I grew up, I encountered many similar like situations where people would say that, oh, you should leave this to the police to handle. You should like, do this and this. So after a while, you can see the societal sort of like thinking tells us that you should know your place. And knowing your place means you should be passive, watch and wait. Okay, so all this kind of like thinking is actually against action. Okay, so then after that, people wonder why, do people not take more action and things like that. But actually, it's because many times subtly our family upbringing or our society and even education tells us that you should, for example, think before you act. Okay, but when you condition people to think before they act, what you're basically saying is that you are giving up the window of opportunity where you can act. Okay, so therefore, what happens is that many people end up not acting in the end. Okay. Another sort of like societal like conditioning that like causes people to not be able to take action and to motivate themselves is a concept leading to fear of failure. Okay, so sometimes before we have tasted like failure, we're told by our parents or teachers or whatever that failure is a really bad thing. Okay, or that failure means like the end of whatever. Okay, but instead of telling us that actually it is a process and you don't really fail unless you give up. Okay, so all this wrong or like misleading concepts about failure leads many people to have this unreasonable fear. Okay, sometimes I tell people fear of failure is like fear of ghosts. Okay, you don't understand ghosts, that's why you fear them. And of course, like all the horror movies like show you, oh my god, ghosts are like so scary, they do all the bad things and everything. That's exactly what society and family does to failure. Okay, they show you all these like things that look at what happened to this person when he failed and etc, but they don't show you like the whole process. Okay, so next time you realize that you actually have a fear of failure, think about it. If you can overcome your fear of ghosts, you can overcome your fear of failure. Okay, the other thing about conditioning is this whole, especially in Asia, I think, it's this whole concept of comparison, and what I would say, over comparison. Okay, over comparison actually will lead to inaction. Why? Because there is just too much pressure. So imagine like if you're a child and your parents is constantly sort of comparing you to the neighbor's child, to your cousin, and you're always in a position where you're not doing as well. Or if you're doing like well, then you could be doing better, or if they're not comparing you to somebody physical, they're comparing you to your potential like self or the harder working like self or something. So all this kind of comparison can actually lead to too much mind clutter, overthinking, worrying, and therefore people end up then not taking action and they start to lack motivation because it feels like no matter what I do, I'm never going to be good enough. So why do I bother like trying? Okay. Now, the next is the very big one, which is procrastination. So many people have this issue of procrastination. Okay. So when you actually sort of have if you feel that you procrastinate a lot, okay, you may want to see if this is true. Okay, so one is, are you procrastinating because you're overthinking? Because procrastination is never something that happens like on its own. There must be some reason why you're procrastinating. Okay, so are you overthinking things? That's why you're procrastinating. Okay, are you overweighing the risk? So some people, they procrastinate because they keep thinking about what could they be losing out, what could they be losing out, instead of objectively weighing what am I sort of like losing versus what I could gain. Okay, because the reality is that there is no perfection. Okay, so there's no such thing as I only want to gain, I'll lose something. Okay, well, we're not talking about sacrifice, we're talking more about sort of like risk management. Sometimes you just have to take a risk. So if you're overly concerned about risk, then the overthinking or the overweighing of the risk amount of time that you're doing may end up sort of procrastinating, because there is never a right time to be absolutely safe. Okay. Some people procrastinate because they fear the loss of control. Okay, they fear once they start the ball rolling, there will be too many factors that is out of their control. So they prefer to have it status quo, because then everything is within like their control. Okay. Now, then of course, fear of failure again. Fear of failure of very often leads also to procrastination. Okay. Then one other, so apart from fears and all, sometimes procrastination is because you are already feeling overwhelmed. So when you feel overwhelmed, you're on the brink of burnout. So your defense mechanism kicks in and you try to protect yourself. So in protecting yourself, what do? You procrastinate. So whatever you feel is not that important, like life and death, like to your life, you will procrastinate it. Because for example, many people procrastinate many things, but I haven't really heard people procrastinate eating their meals, or procrastinate drinking water, or procrastinate like going to the washroom. Okay, so why is because these are like essential activities, and definitely one thing that nobody procrastinate is breathing. Okay, nobody procrastinates breathing. Why? Because these are absolutely necessary for you to continue living, right? So therefore, what do people usually procrastinate? Things that they feel in a current circumstance is not as important or a priority. Okay. However, if you are facing overwhelm, which is causing the procrastination, you need to get help, because you don't want to risk an actual burnout. Overwhelm means that you're already on the brink of a burnout. Okay. Some people lack motivation because they are depressed. Okay, depression is actually a bigger problem than we realize in our current society today. Okay, yesterday I was having a conversation with one of my friends, and there is actually this sort of like program called SafePod in Singapore right now, whereby there is an actual device that uses AI to detect signs of depression just from scanning like your face. Okay, so currently they're using this on like school children to try and help them to realize that that they may be in stages of like mild depression. Okay, so if you find that you are exhibiting symptoms of like depression, or even no matter how mild, and that's why you're procrastinating things, then you want to go and seek some help. It can be healing, it can be seeking going to look for a counselor or psychologist, etc., or just going for some therapy. But please do something about it. Okay, because it's quite easy to like resolve if you start reaching out for help. Okay, although it is a long process, but if you need to start like somewhere. Okay. Another reason why people procrastinate is because they feel a lack of energy. Okay. Often when you are very tired all the time, or you find that, oh, at the end of the day, I've worked the whole day, I'm like so tired now, I don't have the energy to sort of pursue my dreams, or like do an additional sort of like module of learning, etc. So it's because you run out of energy. Okay, so this has to do with possibly one, physical stamina. Two, it could be that your body is, or your energy field is clearing too much negative energy that you absorb. So sometimes lack of energy can be avoided, or can be like improved if you just like use more energetic protection. Okay. However, if after you put on the best energy protection, for example, using like your guides and like white line, and you even put on sprays and essential oils, etc., and it still didn't work, then please investigate your health. Okay. So for procrastination, I was gonna do an exercise, but I don't think we have time now, so I'm just going to continue. Okay. So as I said just now, lack of energy could be caused by health issues. Okay. Sometimes when people sort of like feel like they lack self-motivation and everything, they always think that the answer is psychological, or is in their energy, or it's like something is wrong like with me and all. And sometimes it's true, something really is like wrong, but it's just that it is a physical issue. Okay, so for example, people who have weight issues, when you have weight issues, you may experience things like bloating, water retention, and all, which basically tires your body out. Okay. um and when that actually, and if you think about it, if you are like carrying more weight than, let's say, your bones and everything like can, then naturally you would get tired more easily, especially if you're not keeping up like with your exercises and a healthy like lifestyle. Okay. Another health issue which very often causes like lack of energy is blood issues. So blood issues can be blood circulation. Okay. And two can actually be blood issues such as, for example, if you have a low blood count. So you have a low blood count, you may actually experience symptoms that is very close to like when people are not grounded, or when people are over like clearing. Because first, if you find that you consistently cannot build up the energy to motivate yourself, and you have real issues with motivation, the easiest thing to check out is really your health first. If there is no issue with your health, then it's definitely like the other issues that are listed out today. Okay. Chronic issues. So chronic issues are things like, for example, if you have rheumatoid arthritis, or if you have high blood pressure, or if you have high cholesterol, and also like some people have consistent inflammation within like their bodies and all. So all of this actually causes a drainage of energy. So you start to sort of literally leak energy, because all your energy is going to try to resolve these issues for you, but maybe not successfully. Okay. Another sort of like I think that sort of which is related to our health, which prevents us from feeling motivated, is pain. Okay. It's very hard to think about what you want to do for the future, how much money you want to make and whatnot, if you are in consistent like pain. If you're in a lot of pain like almost all the time, and by pain I don't mean just physical pain, some people can also have like emotional or mental pain. Any form of pain distracts you from having clarity about what you want, and therefore makes it that much harder for you to motivate like yourself. Okay. Then next, lack of self-confidence. Okay. So for me, I always say that to accomplish anything, you must have faith in yourself. Okay. Doubting yourself every step of the way will not help you to achieve your goal. Okay. So this is because one of the key obstacles to self-motivation really is the lack of self-confidence. You keep thinking you won't be able to do it. You keep trying to look for signs that you should be doing it and all. But what I always feel is that the moment you decide to do it, you should be prepared to go all the way despite failure or success. Only that way can you actually also build up like your confidence, or you can make sure that confidence is not the issue that is preventing you from taking my action. Okay. People who sort of like lack self-confidence also sometimes is linked to a weak core identity. So core identity is an understanding of yourself that makes you very clear about what your strengths and weaknesses are, what your likes and dislikes are, and what you feel you want to accomplish like in the world, okay, or in your life. Okay. So people with weak core identity find it very hard to have faith and confidence in themselves, and therefore it becomes very hard to motivate themselves towards any goal. Okay. The third thing which comes under lack of self-confidence is this feeling purposeless. Okay. So sometimes like people need to have like a purpose like in their life. Okay, the purpose can be big, it can be small. The purpose can even be something as simple as your own like well-being or self-love, or like it doesn't have to be like saving the world or saving humanity or anything. But feeling purposeless makes people makes it easy to drift, to float around, to just dream without feeling the need to take action, because you don't understand why are you even alive, you know, why were you born into this family, why were you born into this life. Okay, so this is also something that you can work on. Okay, now emotional fluctuations is the last thing I want to talk about. And emotional fluctuations is something that can cause us not to be able to focus or gather enough energy to actually motivate ourselves. Okay, sometimes the problem is really our hormones. Okay, especially I think for women, hormonal issues in this day and age is pretty serious. I feel, you know, if imagine if you are having mood swings all the time, today you feel good, tomorrow you don't, it's very hard for you to focus on motivating yourself, because you're more worried about how you're going to be feeling rather than sort of like focus on what's it that you wanted like to do. Okay. Emotional fluctuations can also be caused by overabsorption of negative energy, or if you have created a lot of your own like sort of like negative energy. Okay, so for example, on new moon and full moon, some people's energy start to sort of like expand, and then they start to actually clear a lot. So when that actually happens, they end up accumulating too much negative energy in their energy field, and then they start feeling emotion. Okay, and the emotion is linked to whatever negative energy that they're clearing at that moment. Okay, so when that actually happens, you will be so focused on the clearing and the negative energy that it becomes hard for you to motivate yourself to do anything at all. Okay. Emotional fluctuation is sometimes also linked to attachment to pain and drama. So I've seen some people where they attracted a lot of like issues in their lives, and which distracts them from doing what is it that they really want to achieve like in their life. Okay, so when that actually happens, and you get attached to like pain and drama, it becomes very difficult for you to motivate yourself to do anything at all. Okay. Then the other sort of like factor is also some of us have too many emotional and stress triggers in our energy. Okay, so this is especially true for people who are very easily set off by anything. And by set off, I mean you get angry, irritated, or upset at just very tiny like things. Okay, so usually when that happens, it's because these triggers already exist in your energy field. Okay. So what I usually see in clients who have a lot of stress triggers is when I look at their energy, they have little sort of like bombs or like intense like black dots in their energy field. Okay, So these intense black dots look actually like bombs or landmines, etc. And it's what I call stress triggers because, like, for example, let's say the sort of like one of my client has a stress trigger which is called not having control of the remote control of the TV. Okay, so what happens is that this happens because she likes to have control of what she watches. Okay, because she's very sensitive to sound and everything. She doesn't like to watch anything that's too aggressive or that's shouting or talking loudly or aggressively. Or she likes everything to be like really calm and peaceful. So which is why she doesn't watch like all those like Korean dramas or whatever, because she finds it too disturbing for her. Okay. However, her husband likes to watch like football, likes to watch like comedy where people are talking and laughing loudly and etc. So what happens is that they end up sometimes in the evening having a tussle over like the remote control. Okay. So and very often the husband plays the whatever he's watching at a volume which is really upsetting for her. For her, she did not talk about it like for a long time, but it started to accumulate and become this little bomb like in the energy field, such that shortly, like I think after like 1 year of that, what happened was that the moment the husband takes hold of the remote control, she would like have a bit of like a fit. So this is actually because the action of taking the remote control triggers that emotional and stress trigger in her energy field, and then it sets her off. So it's literally like stepping on a landmine. Okay. Now the other thing about emotional fluctuations is if you are not able to cultivate peace of mind, then it becomes very easy for anything and everything to just trigger an emotional reaction in you. When that actually happens, it becomes very difficult for you to sort of focus on your greater aim, which means it's difficult to motivate yourself to get doing the things that are actually good for you, because you're now distracted by everything that is happening around you that quote unquote needs to be dealt with. Okay. Now, so of course, we can like talk a lot about what's happening, what the blockages, and like how to spot it and things like that. But ultimately, self-motivation is about putting it into practice. Okay. So what is the easiest way to motivate yourself? I would say that from my experience, the first thing is to go with the flow of your own body and rhythm. Okay. Everybody has a rhythm and they have a flow. So one of the biggest issues sometimes is that you don't understand your own flow and rhythm. If you understand your flow and like rhythm, it becomes easy for you to take action because you are just going along with what is very natural to you. Okay. So one example of this from my own personal experience is that sometimes I write certain ideas down on what it is that like I want to talk about for psychic circles and stuff like that. So I don't exactly set a schedule. Like I don't say, okay, Wednesday 9 a.m. I'm going to do this PowerPoint, because I know it never works for me. Why? Because I can sit there for 3 hours and nothing can come to mind, and then I end up like distracted thinking I should do something else. I should like work on something else first. But if I set the intention and say, okay, I need to get this done. Okay, so I will now tune into my own flow and rhythm as to when I can get it done. Then usually I would get some kind of indication, and then I will go along with that. When I go along with that, I find that I'm able to like create a PowerPoint and the points, etc., within an hour. Okay. Second is that putting into practice is to understand, based on your birth chart and your energy, are you somebody that goes that can, in order to motivate yourself, can do it consistently, or is it seasonal? Okay, so what do I mean by this? Okay, there are some people whereby they are most active, let's say 6 months of the year. And the 6 months of the year depends also on their birth chart. It's not always like for consecutive 6 months. Okay. So if you are sort of active only during particular times of the year, then you want to do most of the work in those times so that the rest of the time you can take it easy. Okay. However, there are also some people whereby their birth charts and their energy allows them to be quite consistently doing things throughout the year. So if yours happen to be that, then it's great, and you may not have very much difficulty motivating yourself. But if you find that your own flow and your own motivational surge is seasonal, then it's much better to go along with that. Okay. Another thing about putting into practice is do it like how you would train for a marathon. Okay. Nobody trains for a marathon running the full marathon like the first time you train. Okay. Nobody does that. Okay. Usually what we do is you try and go as far as you can. You can set targets, but set realistic targets. Try and go as far as you can and then relax. Okay. And then recuperate and then try that again. Okay. So with motivation, this is also what you do. Whatever you're trying to do, don't expect that I set this goal and immediately I'm going to like reach it. Okay. You can set a final goal and then you can set realistic milestones along the way so that you hit each milestone, and then, you know, or even if you don't hit it, that's fine. Just examine why you failed to hit it or why you were unable to go all the way, you know, and then relax, assimilate the lesson, and then try again. Okay, most importantly about putting it into practice is do not push yourself to the burnout point, because the moment you burn out, the recovery process is so difficult that it's not that it becomes like you have this like PTSD about self-motivation or like work, etc. Then it becomes even harder for you to motivate yourself the next round. Okay, so I think that's the end of like the whole presentation on the art of self-motivation. You can follow us at ADL Holistic, or you can watch some of our past psychic circles on YouTube. Our YouTube is called the Lumiere. Okay, so